We have Eric Metaxas with me today in the studio here. He's zipping through because this movie, Bonhoeffer, was, I was going to say Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, but it's actually Pastor, Spy, Assassin, something like that. But, this movie's about this German guy who's in his 30s who was even a part of the bomb plot. A friend of his was trying to, and it's just wild. What would you do if you were alive as a pastor in Germany? You think you'd be so courageous? Eric Metaxas is going to tell us exactly how many people actually were willing to risk their life, and the story of Bonhoeffer and the movie that's coming. I'm going to tell you how to catch it this weekend. By the way, the golden nuggets that are in these stories are eternally valuable, and I would be doing you no service if I didn't tell you that the instability, the shaking that is happening, the global markets and what's going on, we live in the most unusual times when everything that can be shaken will be shaken. But you know what will not be shaken? The silver is mine and the gold is mine, is what God says. And I'm told that this gold is flying up there, man. It could go up as high as $3,000 an ounce. I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/gold. Read the report on silver. Silver, do not neglect the power of silver, because silver and gold, the Bible says, have a kind of a permanent store of value. Silver especially because it's used in technology. So I want you to be able to look at where the money is right now and the investment. You can take your retirement, park it in this, and no matter what happens, we got World War III potentially talked about all the time. I just don't feel like it's going to happen. But listen, it's crazy what Biden and these guys are doing right now with Russia. And it creates instability, and that's where the markets get affected. So go to lancewallnau.com/gold, get the report, look at what you can do with your IRA. Do not don't overlook silver. Silver, I don't talk about it enough. It's about to become very significant. You'll be so glad you did. It'll give you peace of mind. Act now. And let's get into this great movie about Bonhoeffer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. It's so great to be with you. And today, passing through the neighborhood is my friend Eric Metaxas. On his way, he's a busy man. He's got to catch a flight. But I grabbed him as I could because I was just reading about the movie that's coming out about Bonhoeffer, which, this was a dream a couple of years ago. I remember I was going to come up to you at one of the meetings we're frequently at, and I was going to say, the funding will come through. You're going to have the movie. But I knew this movie was going to happen. It's God's timing. I mean, do you see it that way, that right now?
Well, listen, we prayed for years that it would be in God's timing. And what happened with Hamas a year ago, this is clearly God's timing. That's one reason. There are other reasons. But listen, I have for years, I know the Lord has called me to the culture, okay? I care about politics, care about theology, I care about, but the Lord has called me to the culture. And creating films and TV programs that are for everybody, not for the Christian conservatives, for everybody, because that's what evangelism is, to reach the people that you're not reaching. This is that kind of a film. You can bring your liberal relative or neighbor. You can bring anybody to this film and they're going to go, that's a great film. So it's not one of the films that just folks like us like. It's a film that anybody will like, and God is at the center. It's a mainstream film with God at the center. What's the last time that happened? Like Chariots of Fire 40 years ago?
Right, exactly.
So this is a very big deal.
All right, now look, let me play the trailer for you folks right now. I want you to watch this. This is Bonhoeffer, and the title of it is Pastor, Spy, Assassin?
Something like that. Just Bonhoeffer is good enough, yeah.
All right, go, let's see it.
Something's coming. Something unstoppable.
Look around you, my friend. How much light do you see?
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds when I was sleeping.
Hate comes in every color.
And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains. With
we have devised a plot to assassinate the Führer.
You will go to England as our spy.
Churchill sees Germany as a whole. He's afraid that a bomb traced to England would mean invasion or worse.
Invasion. Invasion. My country was invaded from within.
And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out his warning. And the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words on the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls and whispered in the sound.
I'm ready to meet my destiny.
Of silence.
Oh boy! Wow. Okay, so 1,000 questions, and we got to have a fast broadcast, everybody. First of all, it's coming out to a theater near you. So how can people find it?
Okay, I'm begging people, your audience, to see it this weekend, because the opening weekend of a film like this is everything. If it has a big opening, now, by the way, I'll tell you, when you see it, you'll love it, and you'll say, oh, I should have seen this sooner, or I should bring so-and-so, or it's that kind of a film. But the opening weekend is everything. And to have a faith film opening in this many theaters across the country, this is a huge opportunity for the gospel, for evangelistic conversations. And the theaters don't want it. I mean, if it doesn't do right the first weekend, the next weekend or the weekend after that,
Are they perceiving it as a faith film? We know it's
undeniably a faith film, but the point is, it's so mainstream that I think a lot of people who aren't faith people will see it and love it. Just like with Chariots of Fire, or in the 1960s, we had A Man for All Seasons. You know, there have been films like that, but it's got to be done just right. This film, it's done.
Well, we don't have a big run, but you know what
right.
this could be like? You know, what was the movie we had with Vint Caviezel?
With the Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that was like this. But we
Yeah.
had a runway on that one. This
Yeah.
came fast. That
Yeah.
one at least had a couple of weeks. I
Yeah.
bought the thing in advance.
Yeah.
The ticket.
Yeah. No, this is. I mean, churches are buying out theaters, so this is
Okay.
like, you know.
This is huge. This is huge. Now, out of curiosity, were you able to go on the set during the filming at all? Were you invited on? Were you able to
I was not able to do anything like that. I mean, I think I said it. It's not officially based on my book, but the people who made the film were inspired to make a film on Bonhoeffer because of my book. So the film wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for me writing the book. And I got to say, you know, the book that I wrote on Bonhoeffer, I mean, I can say this to you. I know the Lord prophetically called me to write this story. It wasn't just like, I got a book about a hero of the faith, let me write a story. God created me.
How did you know? Was it couldn't shake the thought? You have a dream?
No,
Did you see
no.
what?
I will tell you. Listen, my mother, who I talk to every day. She's 90. She grew up in Nazi Germany, and the year I got saved, 1988, the man who led me to faith.
You're Greek. How did your mother grow up in Nazi
Well, my
Germany?
father grew up in Greece. My mother grew up in Germany. They met in an English class in New York City. So my mother's got a German accent. My father had a Greek accent. It's like a Greek and German European immigrant home that I grew up in. And they always talking about World War II because they lived through it. But I remember the year I got saved, my friend Ed Tuttle says to me, hey, have you heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer? He gives me the book, Cost of Discipleship. You know who this is? No, I never heard about this. What's that? Oh, it's a German pastor who, because of his faith in Jesus, spoke out for the Jews and was killed by the Nazis. This is a German pastor who, because of faith in Jesus, spoke against the Nazis. I thought, are you kidding? Like that kind of faith I could be interested in, because I was, kind of hostile to the faith. And I thought, this is attractive to me that a man would live out his faith, speak against the Nazis. And, so I was captivated.
Young man too. I mean, his 30s, 40s?
Bonhoeffer was killed. He was 39 years old. He was engaged to be married. I mean, it's such a beautiful story that he lives out his faith. But I remember when I first heard it, I thought, this is amazing. I never dreamt I would write a biography, that it would sell 1 million. It sold well over 1 million copies, translated into 20 languages. So there's something about the story of Bonhoeffer that inspires people like crazy. I mean, when people see this film, you're going to be like, how did I not know? It's so beautiful. And it's a true story. I mean, the film, they take a few liberties, but almost none. It is a true story. It's not just a great movie. It's an actual true story. And that I can vouch for because I know it in detail. I taught a class for Peterson Academy, Peterson's Academy. That's going to come out in a couple of weeks, in depth or whatever. When people get their arms around this, there's so much to it. And I'll tell you, huge evangelistic opportunity to, if you go to this film, you bring somebody who's not a Christian, they're going to be interested in this kind of Christianity, a guy who lives out of it, also standing up for the Jews at a time when the Jews are being demonized again in our culture. So it's very, very powerful. But what interests me is the idea that Bonhoeffer was trying to wake up the church at a time the church says, we don't want to be political. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. We don't want to be political. We just want to do church. We just want to do evangelism.
It's almost too bad the movie didn't come out ahead of the election.
We might have won the election.
I mean, we could have had an electoral college
we might have won the election if only it had come out. No, listen. This film is about what's happening in America today. It's about, will the church wake up? Now, I think enough in the church woke up. I believe it's the Lord's will to deliver us from the horror of what happened in Germany. But it's like we dodged a bullet, like Donald Trump dodged a bullet. We just missed
the
death.
Church woke up. I don't know that the pulpits woke up. I think the people woke up. I think the Christians. So what was the percentage? Do you have any recall of how much of the church in Germany was awakened and said, we got to do something? How much of it was confessing? How much of it was
not enough? Not enough. I mean, I say in my book, the new book, Letter to the American Church, which is basically, it'd be more fun to read the Bonhoeffer book, but I'm saying that in the last couple of years, I wrote a book called Letter to the American Church showing the parallels. And in that book, I say that there were 18,000 Lutheran pastors. By 1935, 2 years into the reign of the Nazis, only 3,000 of the 18,000 were standing strong. 3,000. If just a few more had stood, it would have been another day. But they had the same excuses that the churches have in America today. Oh, we don't do politics. What kind of a moral midget are you that you say we don't do politics? Children are being raped at the border. Children are being mutilated. Children are being murdered in their mother's wombs. Like, you don't want to speak up about that? You don't want to do politics? God wants you to do politics. God wants you to speak up on these issues. The German church had the same response in the early 30s. Like, well, we don't want to get involved politically. We just want to do church. That's the devil's church. And that's what I've been talking about all over the country for the last 2 years. The Bonhoeffer story brings it to life. And obviously the Bonhoeffer book brings it to life because you start understanding these were people. This was not some mythical time. My mother grew up in that world. This is a real world. So the parallels are amazing. But the movie, to make a movie about this and to be able to pull it off, Lance, on a mainstream level. Now, this is, again, it's not like a Christian film or what. This is a film that anybody who sees it is going to say, wow, what a powerful story.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I just from looking at this. Who was the character? Now I should be asking this spontaneously, but it's like, who was the German who was also put in a concentration camp, who Hitler rebuked and said, "You leave, you leave the government to me, and I'll let
Niemöller, Martin Niemöller." Now, Niemöller is in the film. He's in the film. Oh yeah, he's a character in the film, and it's all true. And again, the film can only cover so much, but the actual story of Niemöller, he was a good guy. He was not a bad guy. He was a good guy who missed it. And there are a lot of pastors like that in America. They're not evil. They don't know that they're serving the devil. They are, but they don't know it. And if they really knew it,
in a concentration camp.
He finally spoke up bravely. They put him in a concentration camp. So he was there basically for 8 years because they knew he was trouble. If he was not, a prisoner, he's going to cause trouble in Germany for Hitler. There was still the ability to fight back. This is what people forget. And that's where we are in America. We by winning this election, by the grace of the Lord Jesus, we have the ability now to begin fighting to get
That's
our
right,
country
that's
back.
right,
We
that's
have just
right.
crossed the starting line. We should have been strangled in the cradle, and have nothing. But God said, "I'm going to give you a chance. We don't deserve it." And just as Donald Trump was grazed by a bullet, he ought to have died. He should be dead. The Lord preserved him for God's purposes. America should be dead. America should be over. If we'd lost this election, America would be over. The Lord preserved us for his purposes. Now we get to begin to fight. And to me, the Bonhoeffer story, it's the ultimate story of what happens to the church in the face of evil. Does the church stand, or does just enough people say, we don't want any trouble, we're just going to do church? We got a lot of that in America. And I say to people, if you're going to a church like that, get out of that church.
You guys have to do this. You want to Google, I guess, because you don't know. There's no one. Is there a website?
Actually, I'll tell you. In fact, they gave me a website. If you go to angel.com/Eric, there should be discounted tickets. If you go to angel.com/Eric, or just go to angel.com. But I want to say emphatically, if this film does a big opening weekend, that's this weekend. Okay, this is it. It could change the culture. I'm not saying too much when I say that. A film like this will inspire other people. It'll inspire people to say, I want to invest in a film like that. I want to make a film like that. There's a hunger for films like this. And you and I know each other. There have been a lot of films out there, a lot of Christian films, but to do it at a level where, you have Clint Eastwood's screenwriter, Clint Eastwood's editor, the cinematographer is the guy who did Gladiator, a big film for Lance Wallnau fans. This is the best of Hollywood have created a great film about a hero of the faith. That doesn't happen every day. And we've got to support it this weekend.
And the business side of this is that it's a business. So if Christian movies like this are successful, then more movies are going to come like this at this level. Because, you can have the mediocre ones, but this is a quality movie.
Well, this is about changing the culture. This is about changing the temperature of the whole culture, not just, for the church.
So Eric, I agree with you. We got 2 years before midterms, 4 years, the man Trump shuffles off, and whoever inherits that takes it. What has to happen? And this is something we have to really think about now, because none of us expected. I did not expect the magnitude of the victory that he had. I guess it's because I'm like Pentecostal PTS or whatever. I'm prepared for 5 days of riots. And,
Me too. I was too.
I was ready in the bunker. I figured I'd be on your show. I was going to have you on mine, like staying up at night waiting.
Exactly.
What's Arizona doing?
Right.
But it didn't happen. So now I'm saying, all right, the walls of Jericho are down. This happened in 2016. And we should have thought what we did last time was, well, that's interesting. Then we went back to normal.
Listen, we were not prepared in 2016. Trump was not prepared. Trump is a new man. He's a new man. He knows that he is at war with satanic enemies in the deep state. They are the enemies of America. They're the enemies of we the people.
Which is why I'm telling people, it's so weird. These are Christians. It's a constant education process. But they write to me, when is he going to make a Hispanic pick? When's he going to do a black? This is not a typical optical cabinet. He's not saying, well, I want to get an Asian. I want to get a lesbian. Let's get something for everybody. He's trying to get flamethrowers who won't buckle.
Thank you.
Because they've got to actually go into the deep state and remove something.
Flamethrowers. And let me tell you something. I think he gets that. And I think the message is, we're going to go scorched earth on the deep state. This is not.
Thank you.
It's not 4 years. Even 4 years ago, we had no clue of the evil we're up against.
Don't you really believe God allowed? I mean, with the wisdom.
4 years ago, I thought Mike Pence was a good guy. 4 years ago.
Well, can you imagine him now? Can you imagine him as the warrior, the warrior face of the movement?
I'm telling you,
it's
listen.
like Mitt Romney. What a mistake.
We have all woken up to what's going on. And there are a lot of people that are, listen, there are a lot of people that still are not awake. There's a lot of people still going to churches. They frankly couldn't care less about this. I don't care about them. I believe God will raise up just enough people.
I've got an idea. I want to throw an idea.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you guys are going to go to angel.com/Eric. Help Eric out, and you're going to enjoy this.
I mean, I don't know if it helps me out. That's just the link they gave me, angel.com/Eric for discounted tickets.
Well, when I have a slash like that, it helps me out.
I don't know. But it's angel.com/Eric. And honestly, I say this humbly to your audience. Please see it this weekend. Please see it as soon as possible. When you see it, you're going to think of other people and you're going to tell them, you got to see this film. If this is a big film, it will have a real effect on American culture. This is a big opportunity. It's a huge, huge, huge opportunity. That's all I can say.
All right. Well, I had a question and it went
I
right
know,
out of my head. I had a
know.
question that went right out of my head. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. So I got this idea. We're going to have a meeting. I'm thinking of convening a meeting. I want to invite you to it in advance, but it's going to be in Washington. It'll be at the Bible Museum. We'll get some Trump people there. But here's the convening of it. Charlie Kirk and Severi says, I want to see what thought leaders and influencers can do that are in the evangelical community to really game out. What can we do to unify before the midterms this next time? I mean, we do courage tours and AmeriFest and all this stuff, but what could we do that we must do in order to unify a kind of like a drum beat? And it could be more productions like this, et cetera.
Oh.
But I got one idea. I want to throw this at you.
Yeah.
You seen that app? Mercedes had the idea where you can rate your professor,
Yeah.
and the professor, is he good? Or is
Yeah,
she bad?
yeah,
Are they boring?
yeah,
Are they?
yeah.
What if we had people rate the pastor?
It exists.
And
It exists. It's called now I should remember what it is.
It's not My Faith Votes.
No. It's my, oh my gosh, I have an opportunity now and I can't do it. It's church, is it churchfinder.org?
But you rate the pastor?
Where you rate the church. If people will,
Or do they have a civic element in there? Like, do they speak boldly? Blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
Yeah. No, it's real. And the people that have created it, I don't know if they got the idea from me, because I was talking about this several years ago. I was like, we need to know that these churches, like if your church is not speaking boldly on this, like where do they stand? And I'm telling you, I've said this publicly many times. If you're tithing God's money to a church that is not in this war, I rebuke you. It's God's money, and we are in a war against evil. And to pretend that it's not your battle, it's not the church's battle,
And you
that
know
is
what I'm
not
tired
biblical.
of? I'm tired of fighting with the churches that don't want to do it. I say, I want to create, this may be controversial, I want to create competition. In a good free enterprise system, you create healthy competition.
Oh, it's happening, Lance.
So it's like, what is Rumble
happening.
doing? Rumble's competing with YouTube,
yeah.
and Joe Rogan is
Yeah.
competing with, it's just, I want to see churches rise up that can
Yes.
actually capture the mobilization of the patriot community.
I'm telling you, it's already happening. And everywhere, all the churches that invite me into their pulpits, it's the same story. They've been brave. They were brave during COVID, speaking against the vaccines, like saying all the stuff that you're not supposed to say. They said, we're going to say what we think is right. And the market decides. And those churches have all increased their numbers like crazy. And the churches that are being all timid, whatever, they're bleeding people, because we're living in crazy times. People want a church that's speaking truth, that's relevant, and all this religiosity, and that we have a nice service. Who cares? The devil is thrilled with your nice service. God is not impressed with your nice service.
I heard Rush say this, and it was such a priceless piece. He said, people look at what I do in my media. He said, people pay you not for entertainment. They don't pay you for your voice. They pay you for your perspective.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen is the American people are going to begin to demand a perspective that is current with events. And the church can only, I was thinking about this the other day, how many times I've been neutered when I'm trying to do a broadcast here in the studio, because I'll do it for a Christian TV platform. And they'll tell me ahead of time, don't mention the election, don't mention Trump, don't mention COVID, don't mention whatever you do with the vaccines. And so I'm going, wait a second. I actually have to learn how to navigate a Bible sermon away from application from the world they're in. In order for it to be relevant.
That's the devil. Let's just cut to the chase. That is the devil. That's the devil's kind of church. Just preach your little gospel. Don't mention anything relevant to people's lives, because listen, that's what Hitler, when you brought up Martin Niemöller, okay, this is in the movie. Now this scene is not in the movie, but Martin Niemöller is in a meeting with Hitler, and he says something like, mein Führer, well, we care about the Third Reich, we're patriots, we love Germany. And Hitler says, I built the Third Reich, you just worry about your sermons.
And then that's the quote I wanted, because I remember reading it. It was
that was in my book, Religionless Christianity.
That was okay.
Yeah.
So Who was the Albert Speer, right? So I used to feel so guilty because people accuse me of being a Christian nationalist, but I'm reading Albert Speer. I'm traveling around the airport with Nazi books.
Right.
I'm taking the cover off and putting other covers on them, and I'm reading Albert Speer.
He was the architect.
But he would talk about kitchen talks, the kitchen cabinet talks. He would break
the
down and
table
say,
talk, yeah.
the table talks with
Yeah.
Hitler, kind of like, and he mentioned that. He quoted that.
Yeah.
And he said, and there was the time when Hitler basically said, "Leave the government to me. I'll leave the church to you. How about that deal?" And I thought, this is the one that American pastors have taken.
They've taken
They
the
said,
devil's
all right,
deal.
You leave the pulpit to us. Hey, we don't have to hire gays. Let's understand it. Our
Right,
people,
right,
businesses,
right.
what they have to do, they have to do.
Right.
Just leave us alone.
Yeah, that's the devil's bargain. And many pastors in America have taken that. And listen, if you tithe to a church like that, you're the problem. Let's stop blaming the pastor. You're the problem. You're feeding that beast. And that is wicked. That is allowing evil to destroy our children. And
Hey, by the way, I want to tell you something. You're getting, I shouldn't tell you this, but I got to tell you this. Christianity Today doesn't like your movie.
good. Christianity Today has died a long time ago.
What happened to Christianity Today?
Well, it's happened to a lot of organizations. Listen, Campus Crusade for Christ, they have a diversity officer that sent a letter. Megan Basham told me this on my radio program the other day, that Campus Crusade for Christ, this was once a great Christian organization, right? They have a diversity officer who sent letters, I think, to all the people of color when Trump won, saying something about you've got to grieve or something. I just thought Campus Crusade, which was a great organization.
Bill Bright would roll over
Bill Bright,
in his
but
40-day fasting grave.
That's one example. So I hope people aren't writing checks to Crew, but much worse, Christianity Today.
Christianity
they
Today's
died.
lost. Russell Moore, right?
Russell Moore is
They flipped and
as
lost there.
anti-Trump as Obama.
I just had I had to go there to see if because here's my litmus test. If they don't like it, then I know it's especially important that we go see it.
Well, no, I want to say this, that a lot of these vicious liberals have tried to kill this film.
What?
Oh yeah, no, they've been trying to do
We
that.
only got 2 minutes.
I think,
What do you mean? How does a liberal kill a
well,
movie?
they've been the article in Christianity Today is just one example, but there've been other things. And the point is, that's why I say to people, if you love America, if you love God, please see the film. Please understand that there are forces trying to crush it, because this is a major spiritual win that this film got made. I mean, I watched 12 years while they tried to make this film. Huge battles. This is a victory. It's a great film. I mean, again, you can take anybody. This is not just film for people like us. Anybody in America sees this film, they're going to be like, wow, I didn't know that. That's an amazing story. What a beautiful story. I want to know about this guy. So I'm excited.
Now, real quick, he came to America for a little bit.
Twice.
Twice.
He came when he was 24 years old, and that's in the film. He comes to America at age 24 and sees for the first time in the black church in Harlem, he sees real faith, people singing and worshiping God. And he'd seen this kind of, very clipped kind of Lutheran stuff. And he sees people living out their faith in a way he'd never seen before. That changes him when he goes back. I mean, obviously this is all in my book in detail, but in the film they have this where you see the change that he something happens in him when he goes back to Germany at age 25. He wants to be a different kind of Christian. You can see it. And now the Nazis are rising, and he's like, this is it. Just as they were, hurting the blacks in the South, because he traveled in the South in America, he sees the Nazis doing this to the Jews, and it just wakens him to, I've got to be a Christian speaking to the whole culture. I've got to be political. it really is beautiful. He goes back to New York when the war comes. He doesn't want to fight in Hitler's war in 1939. And his friends kind of arrange for him to go back to America. So he goes back to America kind of to escape the war. He's in New York 26 days, and he says, God wants me to go back. I'm going back. So he goes back to Germany to face whatever. And that's when he gets involved in the plot to kill Hitler. And it's one of these unbelievable true stories. I hope people will.
It's powerful. Now, who was the English, the German theologian? Barth? Was it
Karl Barth?
Who wrote to him?
Yeah,
and basically was he was in Switzerland. A lot of courage he showed. He sat out in the neutral corner, but he said, "You got to get back. Germany needs you, right?" And he was
that's a different time. You're remembering this, but that's so funny. No, that's when he goes to England. This is 1930, at the end of 33. Okay. So Hitler's not even in power a year, and Bonhoeffer is so disgusted with the church, so disgusted with the church's unwillingness to fight evil that he kind of escapes to England and says, I've had it. And Karl Barth writes this kind of angry letter like, hey, you know, we need you here. We need you here. It's so fascinating because all these characters, these are real characters. Karl Barth is a real character.
Real
Martin
historic
Niemöller,
people.
all these figures all involved.
My gosh,
Yeah.
Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time, and you've got to catch a plane.
Yeah.
You want to go to Angel Studios?
Angel.com.
Angel.com/Eric.
Yeah.
We're going to have Eric back on, and we'll get him on Zoom somehow when
Yeah.
he's zooming through town. But we want to see that movie. It's a movie. I'm not going to say it's a date night movie. It is.
It is. It's a great. It's truly.
Really?
It's a great movie. You can bring kids, teenagers. I mean, it's like one of those great films.
It's like a Braveheart thing. It's a heroic thing.
Yeah.
It stirs the hero.
It's not as disturbing as Braveheart. It doesn't have any torture
Well, I mean, the
scenes.
guts coming. I admit that's
Yeah.
You know, you're right. That is
Yeah.
kind of a.
That's not a date night movie. Bonhoeffer.
Well, listen,
Bonhoeffer's
neither
a
is
date night
Schindler's
movie.
List. Valentine's Day, it was
Yeah.
a mistake
No,
with me
no,
last year. I told
No.
my wife, I'm sorry. Schindler's List. Anyway, I thought it was a musical. I confused it with something else. All right, we're going to, listen, Eric, thank you so much. Angel.com/Eric. Watch that movie. I'm going to give you a review next week when we meet you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world